Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, September 6th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Maya Tribulsi. Pandemic employment issues are top of mind on this Labor Day, from essential workers rallying for fair compensation to businesses still feeling the sting of staff shortages. Here's KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
We are the union. We are the union. Mighty, mighty union. Mighty, mighty union.
It's a fight for our livelihood. It's a fight to provide for our family right now.
Workers here say they've been on the front lines of the pandemic, delivering COVID vaccinations and testing, and they want CVS to fairly compensate them.
We've been in negotiations for over 5 months. We've had 27 sessions, and we're not freaking done. What's the matter with them?
Todd Walters is president of United Food and Commercial Workers Local 135. They represent about 13,000 San Diego and Imperial workers. He says CVS needs to step up.
This is the age of the worker right now. They are being rewarded all over for the hard work that they do. CVS, for a company that's union, they're the most anti-union company we've worked with. They have put up such a fight over this contract. We were shocked. I'm surprised that we had to be here today doing this.
I just finished doing 2 double shifts, and it's because there's nobody out there to work. But we have to be there for our customers because we're healthcare.
CVS employees like Michael McGee are hoping the company will also make its healthcare plan more affordable.
They don't want to give us a pay raise, which keeps up with inflation. They're a healthcare company. They're one of the largest in the world. They won't give us affordable healthcare, and they won't help us on the staffing issues. So what we're saying is enough is enough. We're going to start taking this to the public.
In a statement, CVS says it has had a long relationship with UFCW 135 and are currently negotiating, hoping to soon finalize a new agreement. While some workers are rallying for better pay, some businesses are having trouble finding people to hire.
Business is going good, but just labor, that's the main thing that we're struggling right now.
Angel Mendez is the manager of Taco Kings in Del Cerro. He's hoping with extra federal unemployment assistance ending that they will be able to fill some open positions in the front and back of house.
In National City, we'll have 4 food trucks. We need a lot of people right now.
This is our day. This is Labor Day. This is the day for union and the day for workers.
Some argue labor shortages are not because people don't want to work. It's because not everyone is offering a livable wage.
You know what? I think what will change it if you pay people what it's worth and if you give them a health care plan. Our grocery stores that have really good quality health care, we don't have a big shortage over there.
While pandemic unemployment benefits are going away, $600 state stimulus checks are heading to Californians making $75,000 a year or less. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
With more Americans traveling for Labor Day, growing concerns over the potential for yet another COVID-19 surge. Hospitals in U.S. hotspots are running out of beds, and officials worry difficult decisions lie ahead over just who can receive intensive care. Chris Wynn has the latest.
Physicians and officials alike pleading with Americans to get vaccinated.
We've lost 24 additional people since Friday. I'll ask for your prayers again, but I'll ask more than anything for you to get yourself vaccinated to stop this.
As COVID-19 continues to spread rapidly, particularly in places with low rates of vaccination, some hospitals are close to full capacity and facing a shortage of ICU beds.
You're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to make some very tough choices.
According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, nearly 80% of ICU beds are in use across the country, almost a third of which are occupied by COVID-19 patients. The situation already dire in states like Texas, Florida, and Georgia, where case numbers continue to climb.
The emergency department is full and the hospital is full. We're unable to place many patients.
And it's not just adults who are being impacted. A recent study from the CDC showed that more children went to hospitals and emergency rooms in states with lower vaccination rates. Dr. Anthony Fauci says masking and vaccinating all those who are eligible are the keys to getting COVID-19 under control.
Surround the children, be it friends, family, school, teachers, personnel in the school. Surround the children with vaccinated people.
A push to protect the vulnerable as summer comes to a close. Chris Wynn, KPBS News.
For the latest on the pandemic and resources, check out the Tracking COVID-19 section at kpbs.org. That includes details on vaccines, the latest case numbers, and our local reporting. You can get there by clicking the link on our homepage. Mandatory evacuation orders have been lifted near Rainbow as firefighters get a handle on the Aruba fire. CAL FIRE reports that crews stopped the advancement of the fire, which has burned 54 acres. That's down from a previous estimate of 100 acres, thanks to better mapping. The brush fire broke out around 4:15 yesterday afternoon. At last check, it is 30% contained. New developments on the Caldor fire. Some 22,000 people who had to leave their homes in South Lake Tahoe are now allowed back. Fire officials say easing winds reduced the fire's spread in recent days, and mandatory evacuation orders have been downgraded. Renee Santos has more.
Kind of a cake flavor.
Cookies and cream.
Okay.
It's a homecoming filled with warm smiles.
Cookies and cream.
And delicious treats.
Cookie, and we're good.
Randy and Lisa Suela.
But I'm going to tell you, no place like home.
Are putting a smile on their South Lake Tahoe neighbors' faces, handing out free ice cream and cookies.
Enjoy that, dude.
Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.
It's a welcome back that thousands have been waiting for.
You can't show enough appreciation for how well they, fought this. And we're able to contain it from the city itself.
It's kind of a little emotional too,
Part of Highway 50 at the Nevada state line is open to traffic again. Many locals are back on the road, grateful South Lake Tahoe remained untouched by the Caldor fire.
Can we go 89?
89 is closed, sir.
That forced mass evacuations out of the area just a week ago.
It feels great, and they're coming in slowly, a little bit of time, unlike when they were leaving, which is a traffic jam.
Just really, really happy.
Ryan Hui has been waiting for the green light to return home with his dog Penelope. He'll be offering free childcare at his business for families returning home who may need time settling back in.
To get errands done, just figure out what they want to do or just relax.
It's a Labor Day weekend turned homecoming, filled with gratitude from people who were dangerously close to the fire, now ready to get back to what South Lake Tahoe once was.
The idea of losing our history, that was more devastating than just losing my own home.
All is not back to normal just yet, though. Authorities say people returning home need to bring their own supplies since stores and restaurants aren't open, and those with health problems are being told to stay away because of the smoky air. Today is the closing day for the summer races at the Del Mar racetrack. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne has more on how the season unfolded and what we can expect for the fall meet.
The Del Mar racetrack concludes its summer season today. Joe Harper, the president of the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, says although this season was different because of COVID, it didn't disappoint.
So it was a tremendous year. This will be the best year ever in Del Mar's history for total betting handle. And it'll going to be up to over $500 million for 31 days. So give me a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Harper says the daily average for this season was around $18 million. And he says part of its success was the loss of sporting events last year that brought new interest to horse racing.
A lot of those sports bettors came over to racing. You can bet on your phone pretty much anywhere in the country now.
With more eyes on the horse races, Harper says safety is one of their priorities. The California Horse Racing Board shows 4 equine fatalities in Del Mar since the start of the season. 3 of them happened during training.
What we worry about is the things that we can control. And so we've spent millions of dollars on the dirt you see behind me, making it as safe as possible. We've hired a number of veterinarians to watch these horses not only in the afternoon but in the morning.
Harper hopes Del Mar will be named the safest track again this year. But Ellen Erickson, an animal activist, says it's not a title they deserve.
It is not the safest racetrack, and Joe Harbour can lie about the industry. Horses are being abused, and they are being overdrugged. They are pushed to race fast and in pain on massive amounts of medication to mask their pain, and it's animal abuse.
Harper says they have also been working with the health department to ensure safety among staff and visitors.
We have 1,000 employees on the backstretch, and I'm grateful to say that well over 90% of them have been vaccinated. We had very few positives, maybe one or two.
Safety for visitors also means reduced capacities. Opening day was a ticket-only event.
I think we're going to do that every opening day because it was much easier for people to get around. You know, our opening days here, when you get 40,000 people in this facility, it's jam-packed.
Walk-up tickets were available later in the season, but concerts did not make a return. The fall meet kicks off on November 3rd with the Breeders' Cup returning to Del Mar for the second time. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Crowds are out in force on this last official summer holiday. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh talked to beachgoers about a Labor Day of high surf and swift rip currents.
They don't go in the water, it's way too cold.
Flora Hyacinth wasn't concerned about rip currents. She was at Dog Beach with a group of friends, including Carolyn Ryan and her son Chris.
They did tell us about it, because my son and his friend have been out surfing in the water all morning, and the lifeguards I did hear them say something about a rip current up front, and I just kind of went, okay, they're out there.
On the last big weekend of summer, the National Weather Service is warning that the risk of rip currents is high. So the lifeguards are telling me they haven't seen a lot of rip currents out here today, though they tell me the worst spots are right here along these rock jetties. There's one over here, and then there's another one. That's the big one where the river meets the ocean.
I know we have been making a few rescues already today. The surf is picked up, so with the increased surf, it increases the rip currents.
Brian Clark is a marine safety lieutenant with the San Diego Fire Rescue Lifeguard Services. When rip currents do form in places like the surf along Dog Beach, he says the first step for swimmers is to not panic.
And if you feel like the current is taking you one direction, parallel a little bit, you want to go that direction. So if you feel like with this south swell, if it's pushing you further north as you're getting pulled out, you want to continue in the northern direction, and then once you're out of the rip current, and then you can swim back to shore.
The National Weather Service says that the elevated surf and strong rip current conditions will continue into tonight. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
It's a hot one today across some of the mountains, and that's why we have heat advisories in effect for the day today. It's going to remain dry over the next several days, but late in the week, we could see a return for some monsoon flow, but it really doesn't look all that impressive. It looks like the dry time is really going to persist for the most part. Again, heat advisories posted for some of the mountains like Mount Laguna, Campo until late tonight. After that, they will be allowed to expire. Temperatures into the overnight period fall off into the mid-60s over in Oceanside. We're looking at 63 degrees in Escondido, 66 over in El Cajon. Tuesday is another hot one, but we'll notice as most of the heat persists in kind of the desert regions here of Southern California. You might find some coastal comfort there as high pressure kind of sits locked in here across portions of the southeast. Temperatures on your Tuesday getting up into the upper 80s in Ramona, 109 over in Borrego Springs, 76 degrees in Mount Laguna. And it's same old story here as we look ahead to Wednesday. Again, some of that monsoon moisture tries to work its way back into the picture, but I do still think that the dry air for the most part is likely going to win out. Near the coast, not a whole lot of change, perhaps falling off into the upper 70s there for your Tuesday, but we're looking at low 80s Wednesday, Thursday. A little bit of a bump up towards the end of the week and heading into the weekend, perhaps getting up into the mid 80s. Further inland, temperatures still staying hot here. We go from the mid 80s on your Tuesday into the low 90s here over the next several days. So 90s on the board Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. In the mountains, here's where you could see that drop off though. After Tuesday and Wednesday, temperatures go from the mid to upper 70s back down into the low 70s Thursday and Friday. Perhaps a thunderstorm around on Friday, but aside from that, it's looking like a mainly dry forecast. And in the desert, not a whole lot of change. Temperatures staying in the triple digits, and it's looking like we'll remain dry too. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
The U.S. Navy has identified the 5 crew members who were killed in a helicopter crash off the coast of San Diego. They are Lieutenant Bradley Foster, Lieutenant Paul Fridley, Naval Air Crewman 2nd Class James Bariak, Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class Sarah Burns, and Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class Bailey Tucker. A 6th crew member was rescued. The military is investigating what caused the chopper to crash last Tuesday during routine flying operations off the USS Abraham Lincoln. When many inmates are released from prison, they often don't have the proper identification they need to start a bank account, rent an apartment, or move on with their life. KPBS race and equity reporter Christina Kim says a bill aims to change that.
What we're going to do is
Troy Schaefer was released from prison earlier this month after serving 17 years for burglary and theft. He's trying to start his new life, but he's missing something he needs to open a bank account and to get health insurance.
Well, we need our ID and so we can get started. It's not happening fast enough.
Since he was in prison for more than 10 years, he didn't have a current photo on file, and he's not alone. Only a little over half of currently eligible inmates released between January 2020 and February 2021 were issued a California ID. The pandemic, when inmates were released at accelerated rates, made it clear that too many inmates were being released without IDs. So says Robert Forte, a resource manager at Metro Community Ministries, who's been helping Schaefer.
something I learned during COVID, doing this job, that it took almost 6 months to get a client an ID. And that's because most of the agencies were closed. There was no contingency. So, you know, for that to happen, yes, it happened during a pandemic, but what it actually did was show all the cracks in the concrete and the lack of collaborations that are needed.
A new bill will let inmates with photos more than 10 years old get IDs. It also stipulates that the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation help with additional paperwork and notary requirements. The bill passed both houses and is awaiting a signature from the governor. Forte says the law will help former inmates with everything from getting COVID testing to getting health insurance.
Because the clients coming home with their ID means that they can go right to work or go right into getting their Medi-Cal and getting their CalFresh. And that ID makes it easy for me to get their Social Security card. And then I can get them to work or get them in school. And, you know, all the verification process is taken care of with that first identification.
As for Schaefer, he was able to get an ID with Forte's help. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
Governor Newsom is getting support from high-profile Democrats in his bid to survive the recall election. He's spending the three-day weekend on a campaign blitz. On Saturday, Senator Elizabeth Warren joined Newsom for a rally in Los Angeles. The next day, Senator Amy Klobuchar was also in L.A. stumping for the governor. He's framing the election as a Republican recall.
Stakes could be higher. Trump was defeated in 2020, but Trumpism has not been defeated in this country. We have a chance to defeat Trumpism on September 14th by voting no on this Republican.
Later this week, Vice President Kamala Harris is set to campaign with Newsom in the Bay Area. The governor is looking to energize his base, especially since one demographic that has consistently voted for Democrats does not seem all that engaged. Kyung La has the story.
Gary Montana's day as a maintenance technician is so jammed, he doesn't have time to care about the upcoming California recall election. A registered independent, he carries one overriding feeling about Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom.
It's just that lack of, I don't think he really understood, like, the average person voted you in.
He's most upset about Newsom dining at an exclusive restaurant in the middle of the pandemic, while he worked. It is in California's Latino communities where COVID's impact was felt the most. Everyone in Montana's family got COVID.
I just saw the lack of leadership skills. Like, that was, to me, was like, okay. And that's what when I thought we needed to recall the governor.
Latinos make up an estimated 30% of California's voters.
All roads to victory on September 14th are going to lead through every Latino neighborhood in the state of California. Am I right? Yeah.
Key in whether Governor Newsom keeps his job.
Thanks for your help.
Tenemos que detenerlos.
Why Democrats are blanketing Spanish-language media with ads.
Clases en persona a una escuela privada.
As are the Republican challengers.
Soy Kevin Faulkner, y no tiene que ser así.
Hola, buenas tardes. With less than 2 weeks to go to recall Election Day, the drive is getting the base out to vote. Progressives have been knocking on doors through this central Los Angeles neighborhood, while some say this.
Have you heard about the recall?
No, I have not.
And there is frustration over the governor's economic policies.
They're recalling Governor Newsom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want that fool in there.
Most we talk to in this predominantly Latino community say they'll vote no on recalling Newsom.
I'm gonna vote no.
Most likely would say keep him in office.
We could end up with something worse, something like Donald Trump.
Thank you, California.
In 2018, 64% of Latinos voted for Newsom, part of a resounding victory sending the Democrat to the governor's mansion. While the most recent recall poll shows Latinos support keeping Newsom, there are questions about whether those voters will even cast a ballot.
Sometimes we show up and sometimes we just don't. It depends on what the issue is. And sometimes we're the ones who can change the whole paradigm, and sometimes we just don't show up and everybody wonders what happened.
One frustrated independent feels so disconnected, he's considering voting Republican.
Yeah, I would rather see someone more in touch with the people.
The federal government has set aside billions of dollars to help families facing evictions, but many Americans are still not getting the relief funds they need. Vanessa Yurkovich reports.
We're just like in limbo. We don't know what's going to happen.
It's a race against time for Christina Toscano. She's being evicted while desperately waiting for rental relief funds that would save her from that fate.
I was up 7 in the morning putting in my application.
Toscano, a receptionist out of a job for over a year, applied to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program 3 months ago.
It's just taking so long.
New York State received $1.3 billion. So far, it's only paid out about $300 million. In fact, state and local governments have distributed just 11% of the $46 billion in federal funds.
The money is getting out much too slowly, and it may not reach many of these families in time.
Camden County, New Jersey has $15 million for renters, but it took 6 months to even begin accepting applications.
It is a long time. Unfortunately, it wasn't something we as a county were prepared to implement.
How much money have you guys been able to give out to residents so far?
We will be distributing nearly $6 million come this Friday.
But to date?
To date, zero. Right.
To date, zero.
Yeah, it's been, it's been a long process.
Without available staff, the county outsourced the work to a third-party processor. 30 people are now reviewing applications.
It really has been a frustrating process because we would have liked to have these funds on the street a lot more quickly.
New York and New Jersey are 2 of just 6 states and D.C. with some statewide eviction protections, but those expire in a few months. Pennsylvania, like most states, lost all eviction protections when the Supreme Court struck down the nationwide CDC moratorium late last month.
Every day there's more pressure.
Philadelphia County has distributed nearly 79% of its rental relief. Last year, it started its own program, giving the county a leg up when the emergency funding became available this year.
Do you think you would be processing as quickly?
Would have been a lot tougher. Definitely the infrastructure that we had and the experience was invaluable. The challenge is just that we're running out of money very quickly.
The county has received 53,000 applications, but says more than half won't get funded.
We're hoping that there's a way we'll be able to get additional funds from the federal government.
Whether it's time or money running out, there's no freedom from anxiety for Toscano, especially when thinking about the future for her 9-year-old son.
What is the worst case scenario for you?
Being evicted with my child and not having anywhere to go. I just think about my son, like, what am I going to tell him?
I'm John Yang. Tonight on the NewsHour, Ida's wrath. Cleanup continues following damage and destruction in the wake of the deadly storm. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Labor Day weekend is usually a slow one for the box office, but not this year. David Daniel has the early 3-day estimates for the top 5 films.
Jungle Cruise landed in 5th place with $3.95 million, giving it $107 million domestic. Paw Patrol the movie made $4 million, falling to 4th place. Free Guy picked up $8.7 million for 3rd place. It's approaching $95 million domestic.
And one day, I saw myself.
Candyman lost the top spot, but $10.6 million was easily good enough for 2nd place.
You have the wrong guy. Does he look like he can fight? Come on, bro.
What pandemic? Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings exceeded expectations, clobbering the competition with $71.4 million in its first 3 days, setting a new Labor Day weekend record. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
The only film with a bigger debut than Shang-Chi since the pandemic began was another Marvel movie, Black Widow, which opened with $80 million back in July. And a fun fact, the director of Shang-Chi, Destin Cretton, graduated from San Diego State University Film School. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.